Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Core Energy Experience. I'm your host, Kurt Bruckmann. I hold my mastery in core energy dynamics. I'm also a globally certified expert coach. I also am a best selling, internationally acclaimed author in an anthology, Ready, Connect, Grow. And I continue to write for Brains Magazine as a senior contributor. Today, I'm very fortunate to have our kickoff of our weekly episode for the Core Energy Experience. I'm also here with our associate director and our producer, Alex Fabio. Our guest today is very special, everybody. I want you to know that. Brian Cooper is his name. He means a tremendous amount to me. You'll hear our history, but most importantly, we're going to hear about Brian's history, and he has a lot to say. Currently, Brian is a director of sales and marketing at Muddy Dog Roofing of Naples and Fort Myers, Florida, a nationwide company. Brian is also a former New York Mercantile Exchange member in the futures commodity industry, which is where both Brian and I met, and we have some interesting things to talk about that. So, again, very special friend of mine and very happy to have him on, Brian Cooper. How are you, Brian?
Hey guys, good afternoon. Pleasure to be here, and it's just great to be here with you, Kurt, to go full circle.
It is fantastic, huh? The energy of it. And as we know, you and I understand energy quite well in many different facets. And this is what we're here to help deliver to the public so they can start understanding how core energy works for them and how it's defined best for their ability to deliver the best they can for themselves out into the world as it is. So, Brian, if you will, start with letting us know where you came from, where you've been and where you are, and we'll just take it from there.
All right, we'll go back to my early years. So I started uh, college in 1984 at Mohawk Valley College up in Utica, New York. My brother Andrew Cooper, who Kurt was best friends with, um, called me up one day on my senior year in college and said, "Hey, I got a job for you, but you got to come home right now." We just started the semester just kicked off. And I said, "You know what?" He goes, "This is an opportunity I don't think I could ever provide you again." He goes, "This could be a one and done opportunity." So I got on an Amtrak train and I got home that Sunday night from Monday morning's interview. Came down to the trading floor. My brother was working down there for probably 5 to 6 years already. And he was very well known down there, as well as Kurt. So my brother lined me up with an interview with this very big company called Floor Broker Associates. Get down on the trading floor. This is something that was all about me. This was just hyped up craziness, yelling and screaming from the opening bell. And it was something that I just wanted to be part of. So my interview was that afternoon after work. So the bell rings and they said, "All right, you're going to go back up to the office and meet with the owner." And his name was Joey Amoya. Joey was a very high strung uh, silver trader and very well known, not well liked, but he had a heart of gold, the guy. I went in for the interview. There was a waiting room full of other young people. I was only 23 at the time, and actually I was 22 at the time. And the, um, the all the people in the waiting room, they had resumes like 2, 3 inches thick. They had like 10 pages in these things. Here I am. I'm holding one sheet of paper. I didn't even get a chance in this world to build a resume. He said, "Send Cooper's brother in." I come in. He goes, "Can you get me something hot with cheese on it? Make sure the cheese is melted." I said, "Absolutely." He goes, "Good." He goes, "You got the job." He goes, "And tell those idiots in the lobby to go home." These guys were all Ivy League students, you know.
Wow.
Walk out in the lobby. I said, "Guys, he told me to tell you idiots to go home." I looked back in. He winked at me. He goes, "And don't ever wear that stupid sport jacket again."
uh,
And there I was. I was a runner, something that I just always wanted to be part of. And we were off. That's how my career started down on the trading floor.
so, just so we can inform the audience a bit, we were trading futures contracts and on the floor in World Trade Center. So that's part of Brian and mine's life as well. Both of us have been two-time survivors of the World Trade Center attacks. But anyway, that's sort of a sidebar. I just want to put that in there, lay the groundwork for everyone so they can get the idea. And the floor itself was filled with thousands of people. We had different what we call pits. They were octagon shaped, and they had 8 steps down from top to bottom. And at any one in time, any given trading pit, whether it's gold, silver, copper, or the products in crude oil, natural gas, gasoline, or in the other sectors, there's sugar, cocoa, orange juice, and cotton. So it was very active, as you can hear, many commodities. But Brian and I first met in the precious metals, COMEX sector of the commodity floor.
Yep. So as I went through my process of training, working in the write-up room, being a runner, working till midnight, I was working 12-hour days, commuting an hour each way from Long Island.
For not much money, I may put in there, I'm sure.
$23,000 my first year. I was negative money by the time I got home, paying for the Long Island Railroad. But it was something that I really had my heart set on doing. Worked really hard at it. I got my first call up from the write-up room. It was like being put into play, like in their baseball. They put me up on an arm stand and started quoting for Merrill Lynch, one of the biggest traders on the floor. And I caught on to it really quick, and just kept going with it and just kept advancing. And then from moving from one client to other clients and holding 2 phones, I really grasped onto the whole concept of what it took to be a good clerk on that exchange, because I stood next to my brother, and my brother was the ultimate pro. He was an amazing what he did. He was my idol. I always looked up to him. He taught me how to play roller hockey. He taught me how to ride a bicycle. He taught me everything. He was just he was a special human being, my brother. I had the opportunity to work with him and be best friends with him most of my adult life.
You know, it's very interesting the dichotomy that you and Coop, Andrew, had. And for the audience, you know, I want to let people know that, you know, their last name's Cooper, Brian here, and Andy, who's no longer with us, unfortunately, and Brian will probably touch upon that. But anyway, it was fantastic to see the two of them standing right next to one another. Andrew helping Brian, as he just said, learned how to quote the market, and not easy thing to do. And they would have 2 phones, not just one. Most clerks would have one, but these two guys were very special, and their energy was just fabulous with one another. They were very intense workers, but also very intense about pranks. And we're going to touch upon that because it was really part of what helped make our group that we worked together, Bruckmann Trading Group, really flourish. And it's interesting that our backgrounds, Brian and I, are similar on the exchange, because when I entered the exchange, I also worked for Floor Brokers Associates, which was one of the larger independently owned firms at the time. So Brian and I had that in common. And then here, lo and behold, comes along Andy, and so Andrew, Coop. So we end up calling both of them Coop, just so we don't get everyone confused, but that's just how it is. So Coop, Andrew, came to me and started working with me, and brought in Brian, and then we formed a very intense group of fellow workers. We were a team, and Brian's going to touch on that a little bit now. So, if you will, Brian, let's go from floor brokers and just give your take on the floor, a little bit more about the energy that was in there and what really attracted you to stay in the business. Because I know that we all at one point were kind of looking around like, should we stay here? Is this really meant for us? Are we meant for the business? Because it was absolutely grueling. As Brian said, 12-hour days, 5 days a week. You know, married to the bell. If you weren't there on time, then you know you would fall back on the pace of the action. So, having said that, Brian, please, if you will, describe to the audience how you felt about the energy down there.
So as we got better at this business, and better means as you honed your skills, and our company grew, and we started to build this Bruckmann Trading Group. We had the largest precious metals hedge fund in the United States and maybe the world. We had Man Financial as one of our largest clients.
So that was called, just to get in there a little bit. That was called the Mint Fund,
The Mint Fund, correct.
and they were the first $1 billion fund that we, Bruckmann Trading Group, that we all found and brought into our company.
Yep. So when I left Floor Broker Associates, my trader at Floor Broker, we'll leave his names out, but they worked at Swiss Bank Corporation. And Swiss Bank Corporation was the largest European precious metals trading group. And I brought them along. I told them I have an opportunity to be part of this a new up and coming company that has probably the largest hedge fund in the world trading precious metals. They said, well, as long as you're our clerk, you could go wherever you want. And we built this company. We were rocking and rolling. I mean, we were doing volumes for a small company like you've never seen. Um, and it was enjoyable. We had fun at it. We had the greatest boss, Kurt. He made this fun. We all got paid. We all made money. It was not about making the company money. It was about us all doing better for ourselves. And that was he was a great motivator. We spent weekends together. We spent days after work together. We were a family, and he treated us with respect as a family. There was no like, well, you work for me. And, you know, we had meetings on our thoughts of how we want to run the business. We had weekly meetings on the best procedures to run the company with the volume that we were doing. It was just a special group.
It really was in so many ways, Brian. You summed it up nicely there, and thank you for your compliments. But, I fed off of you guys too, your energy and desire to really learn and do your best at it. You were one of out of all the employees, at one time we had close to 50. But anyway, you were one of the leaders and you would go out of your way not only to take care of your business very intimately, but others as well to help out. You were always there to help no matter what. And again, you could have easily had, just done your job accordingly and then sort of step out. But no, you were there to support right to the end. And we did have 12-hour days and longer. In fact, Brian would be commuting from Long Island, so I had an apartment, a business apartment, if you will, with a bedroom in there and pull out couches just in case when we were so busy that we would have errors and things of that nature that need to be resolved overnight. So we would be up until the wee hours of the morning taking care of business. And of course, we had some clowning around. That's not going to hide that. That's for sure. We needed some stress release in different ways. But we're going to touch about the clowning around a bit now. But anyway, to it. Very grateful that Brian would stay on and stay in the apartment at times instead of making that big commute out to Long Island. But even then, when he wasn't in the apartment, whether it was snow, rain, sleet, just like a mailman, he was there every single day and very respectful. And he earned the respect of all the teammates. We didn't call one another employees or bosses or anyone. We stayed away from that. And part of the dichotomy that really made us stand out was we all stood for ourselves, but most importantly, after we did that, we stood for one another. And that was a teamwork that Brian was a tremendous asset. And I'm very, very fortunate to have had Brian and Coop as well, his brother. Both of them made of the same ilk. But I got to tell you, when things would get a little slow, look out, because we had to keep our energy at a high anabolic level, that that dopamine fill, so we could be ready for the next flow. Because we get waves of pushing the market one way or another would come out. Remember, we were dealing with all the whole world, international bankers, central banks around the world, major funds, as Brian's pointed out. So we had to do something that would alleviate the stress, because it was one of the most high impact stress jobs in the world. In fact, Playboy magazine, Business Week magazine, other magazines would do surveys about the most intense and stressful jobs in the world, and we would always be up in the top 5. And at one point we were 3. The top was an assassin, and the second were street workers, women of the night. And that's stressful too. And then we were 3. But anyway, we always were right in that position. So I'm going to ask Brian to let loose here a little bit and talk about how he was able to help everyone relieve the stress in different ways on the floor when we had the availability of time to do so.
Yep. So one of the golden rules that Kurt instilled in our company was, if you guys go out and play, you're going to pay. Everybody knows that you're going out that night, because we were all one big family, that you better be at work in the morning no matter what. Even if he always said, if there's a toe tag on you, that's your only excuse. Otherwise, you be at work. And we made sure we were there. So going back to what you were just talking about, so you couldn't take a break on the floor. You had to be present. You could stay in your booth, you could hold your phones, and you got to wait for that order. You're like a fireman waiting for a fire. So in that instance, when it's quiet, we like to joke around. We had a few pranksters on the floor, and we just happened to have one of them working with us. One of the best ones was he would fill a cup of water, put it down in the aisleway. Now you got to remember there's 2,000 people running around this floor like madmen. And he would put the cup of water right down in the middle of the main aisleway, knowing that people are definitely going to kick this thing. And as soon as they did, 25 guys would scream high tide, and water would go flying all over the guy or over anybody else.
And I just have to interrupt real quick. So we would have celebrities come down on the floor. People like Hillary Clinton, Jodie Foster, a lot of actors and actresses would come down on the floor because of the intensity of the energy. It was like if you're a musician or you're an actor, you can relate to it real quick. But all of us out there, everyone in the audience can relate to it. Pressure-packed circumstances and what it's like for the energy. But the energy was so high and so fast-paced and whatnot. It caught the attention of, again, the politicians and whatnot. So with that being said, there were no prisoners taken, whether you were Hillary Clinton or one of the reporters, Becky Quick from CNBC would be down there and others. It was something else. We had Lawrence Taylor down there one day. That was through our company. Brian was with me for that. But anyway, so I just want to set the stage for a little more of the pranks that went on, which you were happened to be one of the better at too, I must say, Brian.
Oh, yeah. So we had a special guest down there one day, Robert Downey Jr. And if you go on YouTube, that whole video was filmed. And one of our dear friends who also worked right next to us, his name is Louis D'Amico. His badge was LOUD. He was the prankster of all pranksters. Louis one day got bored, so he put a bottle of blowing bubbles out in the World Trade Center fountain. And we're out there trading, and you're talking about the biggest fountain maybe you've ever seen. And we're watching the thing foam over like a foam party.
Loud, not loud. What a perfect initial name for him. Loud, yeah, because he was something.
His badge was LOUD 7256. We were Louis that day when Robert Downey Jr. came down. He put gum on his tips of his shoes, powdered them up. Then we had a guy named Sting, who you guys will hear about later on in Kurt's shows down the road, who was a great worker, great guy. He put a little sugar packet in Downey's pocket with a straw of water and was screaming out rock candy, because by the time the guy got out the trading floor, all that formed into like a rock.
You know, I hope the audience is really capturing all this, because, again, you hear the names. You know, there's a big names out there, and so there were no holes barred. But for the better part, most of the celebrities and the reporters that were starting new in the business, and they'd always come to the floor, so they learned how to do it. But the actors as well, they all took it with a pretty kind heart. There were some that didn't so much, but we'll leave those names out. But again, they're very high-profile people, so we don't want to get in there too much. But I appreciate that, Brian.
We had fun when the markets were quiet. But like I said, yeah, you were a fireman waiting for the bell to ring for fire. And it could be out of nowhere, and a client could scream into the phone, sell 200. And if your ear isn't glued to that phone, you miss that order, you're dead.
Yeah. So, you know, this is spot on with what the core energy dynamics helps people with understanding. And one thing is performance equals potential minus interference. So that's what Brian's talking about right now a bit. You had to perform well, and you had to put away the noise that was, constantly around us. And you're looking at one of the pros. Brian, absolutely, out of all those people, top shelf. He and his brother were really way up there on the ladder of the performance schedule. And, I like to talk about the core energy dynamics in hockey forms. And Brian happens to be a former hockey player and a avid hockey fan. And it's, Brian, and you can expound upon this if you will, we found that in the floor that, we need to stay in our zone. And what does that mean? That means that we need to be present, as Brian pointed out, and stay in that zone, because we had to get ready for the massive influx of orders that would fluctuate the market and sometimes in a vicious sense. And that became a flow. Now, if we weren't in our zone, independently of, and then with our teammates, then we would have open to errors. And errors were big. You'd have, 500, 700, $1 million+ errors out there. And us as a independent company, that's a lot of money. Even though we are generating millions of dollars through the company and the business that Brian would brought in and then help bring in others and make it grow. But it is that idea that in life too, that we need to be into our flow personally, or into our zone personally first. and find out how we operate in our core. And that does mean really separating ourselves from all the noise around us and being really centered there with that idea. And then we can get into the flow, which is what Brian and myself and all of us in Bruckmann Trading Group, our team, were able to do when others weren't. So there's a lot that separated us from the other companies, including the corporate companies as well. We were up there with volume and challenging them. They didn't like it so much, but they could do nothing to stop us. And we would get more excited to bring in more business. And Brian was an expert about not just sustaining business and having it scale, but about bringing in new business, which is very, very important. So I thank you for all that, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the orders that we're getting the Mint Fund telling us to buy 20,000 contracts of silver. Okay, it's probably the largest commodity orders you would ever see, and not a person got nervous, not a person flinched. We were like ice cubes. Nobody even knew we had those orders. We would start it at 9 in the morning and finish it at 1:30 in the afternoon. The order, and it was just it was great. I mean, we had two of the greatest brokers. We had Kurt as one of our brokers, and we had another silver trader named Peter Howard. And the volume that we pushed with two brokers between silver and gold, it was amazing the amount of volume, because we had professional clerks that made it a lot easier on the broker.
So the other interesting part, I want Brian to talk about this a bit too, is that everyone down there came from different backgrounds. It was very interesting, and mostly the five boroughs, but around New York City. But it was also, outside people again from different cultures, and it didn't matter what culture you were from. None of it mattered. It didn't matter if you went to college or didn't go to college. There was no judgment there. The only judgment was in the performance in the now down there and how that was. So we had a lot of different people come down. Joe Theismann's brother, I forget his first name, Brian, you remember, he was in silver. Also a name that you're all going to ring a bell is his name is Gary Cohn. Gary Cohn actually helped out some of our business at Bruckmann Trading Group doing some more elaborate style trading of multi-months instead of just one futures contract at a time. So when we get backed up, Gary would offer to help, and he was fabulous. Gary Cohn decided that the floor wasn't for him, and he went on to go to Goldman Sachs on the trading desk and became number 2 at Goldman Sachs, from the silver pit to number 2. And then from there, when things didn't pan out to be number 1 for Gary, Gary went on and became Trump's, in the first administration, Trump's third or fourth economic advisor. Coop, you can correct me there, whatever that may be.
Yes.
So after Trump, Gary exited Trump's first administration as his economic advisor, Gary is currently running IBM. So this is the type of people we had in that floor. And Gary decided to step out of it and do different things with his livelihood. So we all transitioned from the floor, and this is where I want to get to with Coop as well. But anyway, Coop, I want you to add in there a little bit about how the diversity of people were and how you manage that yourself.
Yep. So like here I am. I'm standing on the trading floor next to a guy named Paul Tudor Jones. He was nobody at the time yet. He was just an independent floor trader. He's a local trader, traded his own money.
Let people know who that is, Brian.
Also, now Paul Tudor Jones runs probably one of the world's largest hedge funds in all commodities, mostly. He is in equities and probably in energies as well. But this guy was standing on the trading floor, standing right in front of me for my first 10 years of my employment down there.
So many different types of people.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, you had people that were just happy to be there and stayed as clerks and became professional clerks, if you will. Others would decide to step into the pit, and that was a totally different aspect of life and whatnot. So Brian, let's step a little forward from the floor, as much as I want to stay there forever. We have so much to talk about.
Let's take. I can move this forward a little bit quicker for you. 1993, we had the World Trade Center bombing in the 4 World Trade Center. We all got out of there safely. They left the power on for the first hour. The bomb blast was in the garage downstairs below us. And we're like, all right, we're all safe. We back to work the following Monday. So we were closed for a day or two after, till they assessed the damage to the structure of the Trade Center. Fast forward to 1996 now, New York Mercantile Exchange. built its own freestanding building at 300 Vesey Street. So we're moving out of 4 World Trade Center. We go to this brand new state of the art trading floor, the world's largest open air trading floor. It's got 2 floors, one for the energies, one for precious metals, and one for the soft commodities, coffee, sugar, cocoa, and orange juice. And they were on our trading floor. That was in 1996. The markets are still on the move. Nothing changed. But in your mind, you're knowing that, look, they tried to blow that trade center up once. History repeats itself. So fast forward now to 2001. And we are in 300 Vesey Street, and the towers get hit. They evacuated us that instant, probably within a half hour afterwards, right downstairs to what's called Tribeca Park, where all that was our escape route. The entire trading floors and office staff, there was about 2,000 people downstairs in this park. We were literally 1,000 feet to the World Trade Center. Buildings came down the first tower. We're starting to get covered in dust. Either you stay there or you move uptown or you go across the river. There was a ferry leaving. My brother separated from me at that point. I was working with my brother on the trading floor, and we were working at a company called Great Lakes at the time. Great Lakes was owned by Bill Pepora, who was the chairman of the CME, and we decided to leave the park covered in dust. I walked home that day from downtown covered in dust all the way to the 59th Street Bridge with 5 other guys, caught the last subway out across the 59th Street Bridge to Jamaica Station. I got a Long Island Railroad train home. And still in shock from that day. We were in shock. I got home. Nobody I knew was hurt other than what they were covered in dust. I separated from my brother, and my brother lived in Battery Park City, and he worked there. Well, they had us back 6 days later. We were the first building reopened with the stock exchange in Lower Manhattan. And Christy Whitman, who was the head of the EPA, was sitting in front of our building with a megaphone saying, "The air is good. Come on back. We're safe." I mean, they never cleaned the vents in our building, and we were breathing in that air for years and years to come, and we are all sick. My brother in 2011 came down with respiratory disease, and he had to leave the trading floor in 2011. He was not physically capable of working anymore. His body swelled up. He got really sick, and he was on oxygen. 2017, doing a routine checkup, they found a lump in my neck, and it was medullary thyroid cancer, which was directly linked to 9/11 because it's either hereditary or from a foreign substance. Nobody in my family ever had a history of any thyroid cancer or medullary thyroid cancer. We caught that being proactive. I went to Sloan Kettering. I had a 7-hour surgery, corrected it, removed everything in my neck here, and I was clean. I'm now 7 years clear.
God bless.
Yep. We lost my brother Andrew in 2020 to a massive heart attack. Andrew was the greatest human being in the world. I mean,
Yes.
Kurt and him were best friends. The stuff that they did together, friends wise, and it was just it was really hard. But
Really difficult time, Brian, for you. And I just want to add in, I know that you had suffered some death with your mom and dad.
same, like, year apart. Yeah. So Andrew was there to help out with my parents. As our parents all get old and our parents go, but you're not supposed to lose a sibling at 57 years of age who was an all-American college soccer player growing up. My brother, he was a high school phenom sports athlete, never smoked a day in his life, and he died of chronic pulmonary disease. Do the math. He lived in Battery Park City. He worked in the trade center with us, and he was breathing in that air 24/7 for years and years after.
Yeah. Really difficult for all of us, particularly as we talk about Brian now. And he's right in every aspect of that. We were misled. We were told things were clear. We had to get back to work. In fact, I was phoned. They phoned me up, the exchange. We were in contact. They were in contact with all the business owners about whether or not we were going to come back and what capacity. I called up all my employees and asked, they gave them the option whether they wanted to come back or not, because we were the first business, as Brian pointed out, to go in, and the only one for many months. There
Yeah.
was no one down there. Remember, Brian?
Nope.
It was just us going through the debris from the attacks, and watching all the first responders, unpiling the hill, and all the other aid workers down there. And we should have been, in hindsight, we should have been masked, fully masked, in every sort of way. But we were sort of left out there to hang, and it was about money. Now, if we didn't open up our businesses, then the money, the trading would have gone deferred to London. We would have lost business there, and perhaps even to Chicago. So it was a push that we had to make, and it was a career decision. It was a life decision, and those of us that decided to stay, there was plenty that left, for sure. In my company, we all stayed, and as Brian said, he stayed on, and Coop, his brother, and because of that, the majority of us suffer from what Brian has been talking about, respiratory issues. And of course, Brian has had his battle with it. And I'm very thankful that Brian's here to tell the story, because he's a beautiful man in every way, Brian. And I really appreciate you. I just want to touch base again that when we were all working together, we sort of had this motto of, we went from the me to the we to the us. And that is sort of how things panned out during those attacks. We stopped. We moved on from the me. It wasn't about me anymore. It was more about the we, and most importantly, became the us. And we always provided one another stability, emotionally, mentally, physically, however we could. We formed a bond that is inseparable. Again, Brian and I have known one another for 30 plus years, and spent a lot of time doing some beautiful business building together, and created a lot of growth. And to have to go through all what we have and still do, as Brian will attest, we're still losing people on a monthly basis.
Yep. So post 9/11, 4,300 people have died from their illnesses, more than died on that day. We were adults. We had a choice to go back to work or not. Now, we had Stuyvesant High School and an elementary school and a nursery school across the street from us in Tribeca Park. Those students trusted the government to come back. Not only are they all getting sick now as adults, they're giving birth to children with prenatal cancers. And they trusted the government to come back, that the air was good. Our building, I can't speak for their buildings, but the New York Mercantile Exchange never cleaned the vents in our building. And we were breathing it in for years and years and years going forward. And I would say 90% of all the employees, independent traders, office staff, New York Mercantile Exchange employees as well, are all sick in some way or have passed.
Yes. Brian, let's talk about the energy of that. How have you found your peace, so to speak, if there's not ultimate peace in here? You and I both know that we're going to live this to our last breaths. But hopefully we're here for a long time to tell our tale, Brian. It's really important, and you've been pushing it out there. I'm really happy that you brought this up here today. It's important for people to hear firsthand what it's like, and how it is like, to still be dealing with these issues and see our counterparts. And we just lost Matt Bruckmann. You remember Matt? He was in copper. He battled breast cancer. Yep. So we just lost him.
On our trading floor, or in the ground zero area, there were 16 cases of male breast cancer. Johnny Mormondo, who's a dear friend of ours, and you know Johnny very well,
Yes.
he was another one that had male breast cancer. It's 1 in a million chances of getting male breast cancer, and there were 16 of them in ground zero area. My form of thyroid cancer is called medullary thyroid cancer. It's 1 in a million chance of getting medullary thyroid cancer. It stays in you forever, and you just hope it's a slow grower. And I'm constantly looking in the rearview mirror, and I'm constantly following up with doctors. I go quarterly for blood labs, and you have to be proactive on this. But the levels of people that have gotten sick that we worked with, they know that's directly linked. And everyone's like, well, they provided monetary value to these people. They knew everybody was going to get sick. That's why they shut the program down after 20 years, because they know that mesothelioma takes 20 years to come out in most people. And they knew there was going to be a lot of breathing issues from the air quality down there.
Yeah, so true on all of it.
Fast forward from 2020, from when Andrew had passed, the exchange was now going through what COVID. And because of COVID, we couldn't have any more open outcry. And we were just turning to fully electronic, and we had an electronic trading floor, and we all became registered IB brokers. So I was an introducing broker, and I was able to trade for my clients electronically. And we were doing business. It was working. We had our own little office in the New York Mercantile, in one of their offices on the seventh floor there.
So, Brian, let me just help you reframe that a bit. So, the commodity exchange, the commodity is the largest business in the world. So, we were the first business to be attacked to go online. Therefore, our means of doing business on the floor was gone. It wasn't as if we worked for a bank or for an institution that we go from one bank to another institution to another. No, that was gone. So Brian's coming to in that point now. I just want to lay that out there for people that it was very traumatic for all of us to be pushed off a means of business that we did not know any other business, and there was no other business like it for many reasons.
Yep. So what they did was they cornered us into becoming electronic traders, and the thrill of it was going. It wasn't something I signed up for. So fast forward, they closed the floor for COVID, and here I am. I'm working out of my garage online, at home in Long Island, and I felt like I'm getting handouts from my clients, and that's not. I've never been that person. If I couldn't earn it and work for it, I didn't want to be that. And so my wife and I had the discussion. We said, let's take a step back and let's go and get out of New York, and we're going to move to Naples, Florida. So after what I went through with my health scare, I'm like, you know what, my time is short here. Let's go enjoy some good weather, play some golf every day, and didn't last too long. 3 months down here, my buddy bought this franchise of Mighty Dog Roofing and begged me to help him upstart it. And if you want me to, I could get right into that with you guys.
100%, because this is a transition that I wanted to bring up and what we've all been going through from the floor. And there's a lot of people that we lost. Unfortunately, there were, breakups of families because of it. Again, because people came out of there and they didn't have any other job. They didn't know where to go to. And that was a very difficult transition for all of us. So it took time for some to find their way. And again, some weren't able to, and they took their lives. So it was a devastating event for all of us. It was something that's not to be taken lightly. When we're removed from our place of business and don't have any other place to go to, we have to go back and figure ourselves out. In the middle of our careers, in the middle of, ages of 30, 40, 50, some 60-year-olds as well out there, what the hell do you do? And we had lost our purpose. And purpose is our sole driver of everything. We must maintain purpose. We must stay in action and not be fearful, because fear is a simple reaction, and be courageous, because courageous is a decision. And this is what Brian took on. Instead of being fearful after all he's been through, and has every right to be that and be frozen, and to just sort of, move out of the mainstream and try to exist the best he could. No, he's not of that mentality. And above and beyond that, because he is a courageous individual and understands risk, to how to take calculated risk. And this is all built into Brian, and brought it out on the floor. And here he is now, ready to tell you how he transitioned marvelously into what he's doing now. So thank you, Brian. Go forward. I'm sorry.
Yep. So I came down here, started to play golf every day, taking a step back. My wife and I were ready just to work our way in towards retirement. And my buddy said, not so fast. I need somebody with your work ethic to help me build this company. I go, I can't spell roof. You want me to help you run a roofing company? You know, oh, look, he goes, I don't know anything about it. And he's from Switzerland. He was my client on the trading floor. So we said, all right. I said, I'm in on it. I said, I'm only 57. I'm too young not to work. I need to do something. So here we are. We go for training. We fly out to Mighty Dog's corporate headquarters in Omaha, Nebraska. And, oh, you got to get up on that roof. I said, get up on the roof. I said, I survived 2 World Trade Center blasts. I'm not falling off a roof. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, I'm about cancer for 9/11 and losing my house during Hurricane Sandy. I'm like, there's no way I'm falling off a roof. Sorry. So they said, that's great because we use drone scan technology. I'm like, this is great. He goes, the days of walking on roofs and being, Superman and, trying to be like, it's not needed anymore. You fly a drone and drone scan is the way to go for the future for the industry. So I said, okay, I'm in. So we started this company, joined the Naples Greater Chamber of Commerce. We joined all these business networking groups. Well, here we are. We're off and running the company. And now I'm really catching on to it. I'm enjoying it. And, 2.5 years in, now we expanded. We now have from Marco Island all the way up to Venice. Our team has 3 more locations. Our company itself, Mighty Dog Roofing, we are ranked 30th in the United States out of all roofing companies by Roofing Contractor Magazine this year.
Huge, huge.
Yeah, so the Chamber of Commerce has helped me quite a bit, and I give back. I recently am an appointed ambassador for the Chamber of Naples, and because of that, I get more exposure for this company, and as well, I give back to them because they do help me quite a bit, and it goes both ways with that. And our company is we're booming. We just signed on with a major developer, one of the largest in Southwest Florida. We're building a whole new community in East Naples, $3 million homes, and they signed us on to be their in-house roofer. And we're residential and commercial. So I reinvented myself at 57. I was a little scared at first, but after what I've gone through in my life and learning how to work and trade commodities and the fast-paced world and having a great leader like you train us and teach us in that way, this was an easy transition.
Fabulous. I just want to touch on that one thing you said. You were a little scared at one point. What was that, and what did you do about that?
Jumped right in, looked her right in the face, and said, "I'm doing this." Showed up at a guy's door and said, You guys called us for an inspection for the roof, so here I am." And I learned on the job, just like I learned commodities on the job. It's a on the job training. Going back all the way back to where we just started this whole conversation. Working on the New York Mercantile Exchange, Commodities Exchange, was a trade. It was not something that you go to college for. Yes, education is great, but it's just like a garbage man, a fireman. It's a trade. You had to learn that job on the job. There was no possible schooling for that career. And it's very similar with the roofing industry. You learn it on the job training. Yeah, you need to know your materials and your all the stuff, the components that go on a roof. But it's also the same thing with commodities. So I used my commodities career to transition into this career.
Huge. And you're talking about language, understanding the language of commodities, which is very difficult. And to your point, the background didn't mean shit because it was really about what we were learning hands on. And that's, from my experience in life, that's what it's all about. That's why we profess that, in life, we want to be as present as possible in the moment as possible, because that's where the truth is. That's where the action is. The past is, something that we reflect upon. We don't stay there because we know what can happen there, end up down in the rabbit hole. The same thing with the future. We can just, we can be prepared for it and plan for it, but we be careful of projecting how that is, because that, how it is. We can plan and project all we want, but most of the time, how we're doing that doesn't end up that way. So what happens, what Brian's pointing out to, you get in the moment. You stay in the moment. That's where the truth is. That's where the action is. That's where the authentic being of all of us lie. So this is, Brian again is pointing out all these major things that have occurred to us in life, and in his life in particular. And here he is again. Listen, Brian, Mighty Dog is very fortunate to have you. And as you're pointing out, look what you've done for them and what you are still doing. And if I may, I understand that you are landing some bigger business as we're speaking.
Yes, correct. So, through a few chamber events that I've gone to, just a quick story on how I landed this developer. My mom always said, if you don't ask, you don't get. And don't ever accept the answer no, and give it another try. So I showed up on this job site. They had a ribbon cutting ceremony for this brand new developer breaking ground in Naples. And here I am, and I rolled up in the Mighty Dog truck here for representing the chamber. But I just went up to the project manager and said, who's going to be doing the roofs on this project? They said, would you like to have a chance to bid on it? They didn't just give it to us. We had to bid on this project. We had to do the legwork. We had to prove to them that we're capable of doing this work, and we had to provide the right price, the right quotes, and be right sharp. You have to be sharp on these quotes for a developer. Well, 3 months into the working on these, sure enough, we get the call from them, called us in for a meeting, and they accepted us. And amazing, really amazing. The owners and I, we worked really hard on this with my project manager as well. We built the estimates really tight. We did our due diligence, making sure that we had everything, all the I's dotted, the T's crossed for this estimates. And we're starting May 1st to start putting the roofs on, building that first model home. I mean, these homes are starting at $2.5 million a piece.
Wow.
These are, it's a great community. It's a great company to be associated with, doing business with.
Well, it's not surprising that you've come into Mighty Dog. They found you, you found them, and they have, you've created such a great model there, again, of hard, diligent work, being able to overcome any sort of fear value that might be in there of not being able to get the job done or not be able to put the right pricing on to get the contract when it's very competitive business. Absolutely. And you were in, to your point, in an extremely competitive business in the commodity industry, as you well know. That was, dog eat dog every day. We didn't know whether we'd have a job by the end of the day, as you know, because of all the performance and how the business would shift. But because of our diligence of understanding the importance of the client, and you were very good with that then, and it proves here you are again now. And why is that? Because you serve. It's not just serving Brian. You're serving other people. You've always been like that, Brian. And I profess to all of us out who are listening to this and viewing it, that it's really important to understand it's not giving back, it's serving. Yes, it's part of giving back as well, but it's really important to take your value as we see it. And each one of us has different value in different ways, but we all have value. That's the bottom line. We all share 4 things in common as part of the core energy that we push out and talk about. And that's leadership, performance, well-being, and transition. Brian's been covering all that today and in a very big way. And I hope everyone can really appreciate Brian's travels and journeys, as we call them, through life. It's been very intense, not easy for anyone, but look what Brian's done with it and look where he's going with it now. So Brian, not surprising, very, very happy for you in every way, and certainly supportive. And you're just a special man, and I'm so fortunate to have you in my life then and now and forever.
Yep. Just throw this one out there right back at you, Kurt. Nobody had a bigger heart of gold than you did. My brother, he needed a car. Kurt said, well, I got this great Jeep. He goes, I'd love to give it to you. My brother's like, really? He goes, well, I'll pay it off. He goes, no, you won't. He goes, you already did. He goes, take my Jeep. And my brother loved that Jeep, drove that thing everywhere. He just absolutely loved it. And that's just shows how big of a heart that you got as well. So
I appreciate that. I'm getting a little choked up, bringing chills to me, reminiscing not just about you and I, but about, Koopy as well. And Andrew was such a full-hearted spirit as you are, Brian. And, God bless that you're here still, and you're here for reasons, obviously, and you're pointing them out now. And really important that we keep having you. I'd like to have you on some more and talk about things in a little more depth, particularly about the relationship on the floor and how that was and how we dealt with stress. But, we deal with that in every business. It's not just about the trading atmosphere of the floor. It's what Brian's doing now. I hear he is in a very competitive business in roofing, and he's in, Southern Florida, Naples, and Fort Myers area. And Mighty Dog is taking off again, just like he did with Bruckmann Trading Group, just like he did with Great Lakes, just like he did when he became a trader in the New York Mercantile and the oils and the products. He's been consistent all the way along, and I profess that when we understand our authentic self, consistency comes out naturally. And I think you hear Brian speak very naturally about all these things, and they're all very intense what he's been addressing, 100%. Brian. So again, appreciate you full-heartedly, and It's just been fantastic to watch your transitions, and the way that you've been able to transition through is really special. And I'd just like you to touch on that before we sign off, Brian, about how all these transitions you came about to find success. Remember, success is in the moment; it's not a final product. You're successful in all these moments. How did you do it?
So it starts with work ethic. Growing up as a kid, you have to have work ethic. My dad gave it to me when I was a child. Dad, I want to go to the movies tonight with my friends. He's like, all right, I'll leave money on the counter. He left me $3. He knew the movie was $5. He had the money, my dad. He just wanted to prove a point to me. I go, Dad, the movie's $5. He goes, well, get a job. He goes, then you can go to the movie. So it all starts with work ethic. Show up, get up on time, and get to work. So that's the key. So the biggest problem here in this industry here in Southwest Florida, between Marco Island to Sarasota, there's 1,350 registered state licensed roofing companies. You want to talk about a competitive market? We've carved out our spot in this industry down here. Um, I'm happy in the space that we're in. We'll never be I mean, I don't want to say we'll never be number one, but we're never going to be 1350. The way that we work, all our work ethic. So I brought my Northeast work ethic down here. And it's something to be said. My first few weeks on the job, they're like, what are you doing here? We called for the roofers and no one showed up. I'm like, what do you mean didn't show up? Like, who doesn't show up to a job? So that's the first thing. Show up on time. Be presentable. Speak articulately. Treat the person that you the same way you want to be treated. There's a few simple things in this world, and yes, I learned them through different various jobs I've had. And I learned a lot through Bruckmann Trading Group, and you take each one on and you just keep absorbing it. And I don't think you ever in your lifetime don't stop learning. I think you learn to the last breath on this earth. So
That's so true. We are in a continuum of growth. We are constantly growing, and these come from experiences. And we like to talk about the core energy experience and the dynamics of it. That experiences we shouldn't define them and judge them. Judgment is a damaging thing, but we shouldn't define and judgment. And the fact that experiences are really neither good nor bad. They're simply growth. So when we go to talk about our experiences, we just leave it and speak differently about, conjugating them as a bad experience or good experience. Well, it's all growth, as Brian pointing out. And yes, we are in constant growth, a continuum of growth until our last breath. That is what life is about. So, being able to have the ability to understand who we are and how we operate from our core and understand the energy around us is very important. And Brian is a complete testament to that, as the audience has heard today. And I hope that you all enjoyed having Brian here with me, because we certainly have. He's added such value to our conversation, not just in the understanding of how core energy operates and what the nuances of that are, but the availability to overcome adversity, which Brian has done numerous times, and you hear quite traumatic, and he is successful in every moment, and that's what he's doing now. So really proud of you, Brian. And boy, we go back and reminisce about being together and the energy that we had together on that floor. It's just not been matched in my lifetime since. And I've had the fortune of, having my travels like you have through different things, the swings up and down. But it is about that resilience. And like you said, and even Warren Buffett says, if the 90% of the anything is just to show up. So, and you frame that so nicely as well.
yep. Oh, it was a pleasure to be on here, and I mean we could go on for hours. So
We could. And so we're going to have you back. I hope you'd like to come back.
100%.
Great. I appreciate that, Brian.
Like I said, I could spend hours with you. We can shoot the shit about the past and about going forward and how you also reinvented yourself.
Sure.
If anybody I know in this world that could have reinvented himself would be you. So,
You're so kind.
yep. So
That's part of you. That's very special, Brian. You're always giving gratitude. And I saw that when in the pits, when no one would give gratitude, man, they would want to steal gratitude from you. And you were always giving gratitude, and all your coworkers, all the people that you worked around you, competitors and whatnot, you had total respect the whole time. And that is part of your ability to see how important it is to give gratitude to yourself, as you pointed out, from having to raise $2 to go to a movie because your dad instilled in you work ethic and how that is, and so important that we tap into our core because we all have the availability to be able to do things and accomplish things, albeit it's not easy. And Brian is a testament to that, but as we say here, he is successful in all he has done and continues to be and will always be. So, Brian, really, again, thank you so much for coming on. And I do want to say that we will have you back on. And for all you out there, I'd like you all to, press that button because we will be on YouTube and all the other platforms, Apple, many of them, as you all know them. Please, whatever platform you're on, look for a Core Energy Experience to come on. This is our first of the weekly episodes. And again, I'm very proud that it happened with my dear friend, cohort, my companion, my everything, Brian Cooper. So, Brian, again, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, Kurt, for having us. And like I said, any chance that I could always keep Andrew's memory alive and talk about him, I'll go on for hours. So
yeah, so there's a lot to talk about, and we just scratched the surface. And I appreciate you summing it up as well as you did, because your brother's one that I think about every day. I like you, I know, and he's certainly missed by many, as you saw when he did move on. Facebook people came out of everywhere. It was incredible. And people from not just Facebook had Coop had touched so many lives like you have, Brian. Just explain it to the audience real quick before we go. How many people came out for your brother?
yeah. So after Andrew did what like a true human being would do, he cared for my parents at the end of their lives. He said, "Now I need to live because I don't know how long I'm going to be here." And he moved to Florida, and he bought a boat. He lived on a 40-foot boat down in a marina in Bradenton. He met this special group of people that to this day call me all the time to say, "Your brother was a legend, a true hero. We loved him." And I was getting phone calls. I still get calls every year, and his birthdays. And that guy had more friends than any human being I ever knew, my brother.
Yeah. Again, a testament to who you guys are, and I just want to bring that in there before we sign off, because it's important. I hope the audience understands that the value of what it is to have such special people in our lives and to appreciate them in every moment that we can. And that's really one reason why Brian and I have stayed connected all these years, and we'll always be connected. And I'm very proud of that and honored to have Brian as part of my life. So I thank you, my friend.
Appreciate it, Kurt.
We'll see you again. Yep.
Yeah, I can't wait to see this replayed back on.
Absolutely. As I mentioned to the audience, get on your sites, get on your platforms, and be on the watch for us, because we're coming out and we're going to see you again soon. Thank you so much, Brian. You stay well now.